Welcome, everyone. This is Amanda Fuller from the Kentucky Academy of Science, and thanks for joining us today, September 24th. We are here for a program for Bench Talk Live series, and we are here with Murray State University researchers talking about hemp. So I'm really excited about this program. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Kentucky Academy of Science is our statewide scientific society. We have more than 4,000 members, and people's expertise really does span a real breadth of expertise. So it's really wonderful for us every month to bring these programs to the public and highlight the expertise of our members. We've been running these programs online since 2020, and it's just delightful to continue to have an opportunity for us to talk to each other and share research in sort of a more informal format. This program is a partnership with a radio show and podcast called Bench Talk: The Week in Science. And folks who produced that program were gracious enough to let me steal their name. And it's been a great partnership because we record these programs, and some of the content from these monthly programs end up being broadcast on the radio show and on the podcast. And so I just want to give a shout out to Dave Robinson, who produces that show. And Dave, if you want to tell us quickly like how people can find you and listen to that show.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we do have a cool name. Our show's been on the air for 3 years now. You can hear it. If you live in Louisville, you can hear it at 106.5 FM. It's Forward Radio, 106.5 FM. And you go to forwardradio.org and listen to it online. But then we also podcast it on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play. Just go into any of those podcast services and type in Bench Talk: The Week in Science, and you can get our broadcast that way too. Thank you.
Thank you. And anybody who has something exciting that they think deserves to be on the radio or on a podcast, please get in touch with Dave Robinson. And you can find the Bench Talk: The Week in Science page on Facebook, or you can find a link to it from our website as well. And we just really love that opportunity for people to share their science with the public. So thanks so much for doing that, Dave. And with those introductions, I'm going to turn it over to Mallorie Snider, who's the research coordinator at Murray State University. Hutson or Hutson? How do you say the name of the institution?
Hutson.
Hutson School of Agriculture at Murray State University. Take it away, Mallorie, and give us a little quick intro to where you are and what you're doing.
Great. So again, I'm Mallorie Snider, the research coordinator for Murray State Center for Agricultural Hemp. The Center for Agricultural Hemp was actually created in 2019. We had 5 different foundational partners. And of course, some of those kind of have left the industry. We have one left called Hempwood, which is actually based here in Murray, Kentucky. They create hemp wood for hemp flooring. They can make pins out of it. They've made guitars out of it, all kinds of different things, tables, chairs, what have you. And we kind of are basing the center around we have 4 different points: education, research, development, and promotion. Of course, with COVID, we haven't been able to do much promotion. We have traveled globally to Hungary and Turkey and have spoke with people about hemp there, and as well as nationwide and statewide. A little history about Murray State's in with hemp. We actually were the first ones to plant hemp in Kentucky and in the nation in 2014 when, hemp was legalized. And in 2019, of course, the Center for Ag Hemp was established, as well as the Clara Gillum Fund for Excellence, which is part of our Center for Agricultural Hemp. So Clara Gillum is actually a little girl. Her parents were alumni of Murray State, and she has a Cardi syndrome, which causes her to have seizures. And so through this program, we were able to help legalize certain medication that has CBD oil in it to help prevent her seizures. And I will pass it over to Dr. Ferguson to talk about soil fertility and biofungicide.
The research I'm going to show you is there's so many people acknowledge. Much of what I'm going to share with you is Sarah Forden's master's thesis. So she's graduated, but I want to say thank you to all these people. Mallorie, Snider, who's on here. The Center for Agricultural Hemp. And then it's in memory of Dr. John Mikolczyk also. His funeral's earlier this year, and we're going to have a dedication to the Soils Lab for him soon. You want to go next? Okay, he started this project many years, 1996. It's a burrow litter fertility experiment. Next. That one, yeah. So, by 96, he started in 97. I came in 96. Okay, so it's a long-term fertility project. Burrow litter is chicken manure with bedding material in it. And the reason this experiment started is it's very high in phosphorus, and the phosphorus builds up after many years. So for most of the years, it was either in corn or soybeans. 2020 is the first year we put hemp on it, and so we use a CBD hemp on this research. The plots are no-till, so we hand inserted the plants in to keep the no-till. Experimental design is a randomized complete block design with 4 replications and 8 treatments. So we'll go through that in a minute. Okay, this will help you understand a lot, I think. It doesn't get burrow litter every year. It gets burrow litter when we're in corn usually. And so we're looking at residual amounts. So here is the treatments from 0 tons per acre to 7 tons per acre. And this is 2020 soil test results. I apologize, it's not as clear on this slide as it was on the PowerPoint, but you can see that the phosphorus is very different. This 0 has not had any fertilizer since 1997. Very low, and you go up in burrow litter, the phosphorus level becomes very high. Same thing happens for potassium. Very low, and it goes very high. So we're looking at residual fertilizer. So residual fertility, I'm saying. We didn't, so it had no P and K fertilizer, but it's residual fertility from the burrow litter applications. Next slide. They were given nitrogen fertilizer, obviously. So the plots relied on residual fertilizer. They were given 100 pounds of nitrogen per acre May 21st. Then we transplanted with feminized hemp seedlings the second week of June. So here is an aerial shot of the plots. So there's 32 plots in it, 4 reps, and 8 treatments. So this is the hemp plants. Okay, so the results. The burrow litter, here's the treatments. Plant height was highly significant, as you might expect. So as the fertility got higher, the plants got taller. However, it was not significant for yield. Now, let me explain this. It says hemp flower yield. This is feminized plants, and so the way we harvest this is we cut the plants from the center of those plots, laid it on black plastic sheet, and then we also had netting down. We stripped all the flower buds off and the leaves with the flower buds off. And that was taken and dried. And then these are the yields. And so it's not significant, but you can see that the values are higher as you get into higher fertility. So the biggest problem, and we're repeating this experiment this year, is it had a very high CV. The variability was just very difficult to deal with. So that's one thing we're trying to bring down the variability. Next slide. Okay, so we did have all been analyzed. Percent CBD has been grown for the cannabinoid CBD, and it did not vary significantly between those fertility plots. So we're repeating this experiment, and we'll be combining the 2 years. Next slide. Okay, now we're going to the long-term copper fertility experiment. Okay, need to explain this a little bit. We just didn't say, hey, let's check copper. It is a spin-off of the broiler plots after many, many years. So the CBD hemp research was put on these long-term copper fertility plots. Okay, so to understand this is it's only a one-time application. It was back in 2009, a one-time application of either 0, that's our control, 10 pounds or 20 pounds of copper per acre that was added to the soil by spraying the solutions with copper sulfate with a CO2 backpack sprayer. So what we're looking at is long-term residual copper from this one-time application. Next slide. So here I'll recap. It is residual effects, where copper is a micronutrient, and you got to control the levels very carefully. So we're looking just the residual. Again, it's a randomized complete block design with full replication in those 3 treatments. Okay, this is important. This column here, I don't know, can you see my cursor when I shake it like that? No. Okay. The left column here is the original treatments in 2009. And it was 0, 10, and 20 pounds per acre. That's 2009. You might say, well, is that copper still there? And it is. Here is the 2020 soil test copper levels. And you can see that the copper is still in that soil, and it goes up consistently. So the residual copper is still there, and we're looking at that. Okay, next slide. Did not affect the plant height. Interestingly, I didn't put it on the slide, but it did not affect plant tissue analysis either. I wish I'd have put that in there. But there was no significant differences in copper in the leaves. And the hemp flower yield, now here it's, we harvested it the same way. It was not significant, but you can see that the value for the 10-pound treatment is higher value. We're repeating this. We think, I should tell you, we have had 6 years of corn and got significant yield increases with the 10 pounds. Obviously, we got it bracketed from being too low to too high and right in here. Seems to be higher, and so we're repeating that. But what? Go back a second. Sorry, Mallorie. Anyway, the CV is again one of the problems. There's a lot of variability. We have to deal a lot with variability in the field. But this is not total biomass, just the hemp flower yield. Okay, next slide. And the total CBD percent was a little higher. So we'll be repeating that. It was not statistically significant. So next slide. So that was last year's data. So we're we don't want anyone to take away that fertility is not important. It is. We just have to repeat it and repeat it. So now I'm going to change gears a little bit. So we were talking about soil fertility. Now I'm going to go to a biofungicide experiment. That was this was my first research with hemp. Now, to tell you, there's very few products that are available for pest control in industrial hemp. The list is very few things you can use. We were contacted by a company to put out field research to evaluate several biofungicides that were available for it. Yeah. And then we did one standard fungicide that's not labeled for hemp. That's research. Next slide. Okay, the experimental design, it was had 4 replications, 5 treatment. Again, it was a CBD type of hemp with feminized plants. But in this experiment, I need to tell you, the field that we had this experiment in also had other areas where they were testing monoecious hemp plants that had both male and female flowers. And some of that pollen pollinated our flowers in our experiment, even though we had just feminized plants. So in this experiment, when we harvested, we had both flower buds and seed. Next slide. Okay, so I'm going to go through what some of these products are and tell you the first control. Then Sil Matrix was a product name, and it's a silicate. Silicate supposed to be insecticidal and fungicidal. They're both. But it's a silicate product. The double nickel is a biological. It contains Bacillus amylolifaciens bacteria. It's a biological. The fourth treatment there's Trilogy. It's a neem oil extract. So those 3 were given weekly treatments. And the 5th treatment here is Headline, which is a standard fungicide, strobilurian fungicide. It's not labeled for hemp, but we wanted to compare it to a standard fungicide commonly used with other field crops. Here is the estimate of percent area that was diseased. And obviously, the lower the disease level, the better. And you can see the double nickel had less and the standard fungicide. The others was quite variable and didn't seem to have much of an effect. Yield is both the flower buds and the seed, and it was not statistically significant, but there were indications of higher values, again with a double nickel and a Headline, matching the lower level of disease insects. And here, percent CBD is lower. And you say, well, why is that lower? Because there's a lot of seed that was harvested along with the flower buds. So, anyway, okay, next slide. We didn't expect this. Some of the products said that they have insecticidal and fungicidal activity. The biggest problem we ran into is this corn earworm. And there's about a cornworm on every bud. That was terrible. And we didn't treat them because they said some of these products we're testing had some insecticidal activity, but there's no effect. And so we had a lot of damage for this. But it did help us knowing that in the 2020, we went to great efforts to try to control the corn earworm. Go back a minute, second, sorry. Anyway, we put out a pheromone trap and look for moths and tree. There was product labeled for hemp called Gemstar. But the corn earworm's one of the problems we're going to face with hemp. You might say, well, it's corn earworm, but now corn earworm attacks a number of products. It loved hemp. Next slide. I wanted to show you the combined years and what some of the yields were. Biofungicide in 2019, we had higher yields, but it had both the flower buds and the seed in it. So I think that accounted for the higher. In the 2020 experiments, we had lower yields, but those were only flower buds. But by having only flower buds, we did have a much higher percent CBD. Now, if you're selling your hemp crop for CBD, this percent CBD is very important. So then I've been asked, well, how do you apply products to these since they're so tall? Next slide. We had a CO2 backpack sprayer that goes up behind you. Yeah, because the hemp can get to be 8 feet tall. And how do you apply products to that? So we have a CO2 backpack sprayer. Extends a bit behind you. Here's the CO2 tanks. Here's a backpack system. Next slide. And this shows you what it looks like. I'm walking along in the field, and the actual spray boom is above the hemp there, being sprayed on it. So that's, and we did that weekly to apply those products. And that's how we applied the products in 2020 to help control the corn earworm. Let's see. I know I'm early on time, and I'd love to answer questions, but I'm going to pass it on to the other speakers, and then any questions that come up, I'll be glad to come back, discuss or answer.
Great, thank you. I'm happy to hold questions to the end if that's what you all would like. Folks who have questions, feel free to just note them down. We can unmute at the end and people can ask, or you can write questions in the chat if you have questions. So let's hold on to those for a second. And let's go to our second speaker. Dr. Ian Handayani is a professor of agronomy in the Hutson School of Agriculture as well. And you're not talking about animal feeding trials. You're talking about soil fertility. Are these the right slides?
Well, originally we were supposed to do Dr. Ferguson, me, then Dr. Handayani, but I can.
Okay, you're switching. No, it doesn't matter to me. That's fine. If you want to do the animal feeding trials next, that's fine.
Is that okay with you, Dr. Handayani? Okay.
Okay, great. So Mallorie Snider is our next speaker. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that. Thanks, Dr. Ferguson. So before I talk a little bit about Murray State's involvement with animal feeding trials and hemp, I want to tell everyone that feeding hemp to animals that are going to be used for consumption is illegal, according to the Association of American Feed Control Officials, or AAFCO, AFCO. This was purely all research. Some of the animals, they had their residual time or time off with like a couple months or whatever the residual time off would be for those animals to be either processed or sold, etc. We did animal feeding trials with poultry, laying and broiler chickens, horses, beef cattle, and dogs. And we also have started a few trials with hogs as well. So the first one is probably one of the most interesting and most exclusive ones. There was 3 different separate projects on this, actually 4 separate projects on feeding a full spectrum CBD equine pellet. It tested for 0% THC. And the first thing they wanted to know is, how much of the product does the horse need to eat before it shows up in the blood. So that was the first part of the study. The second one in the clinical dose, and then evaluation of pain and improved performance that was used by tracking them with a program called Dartfish 360. It's a video tracking. So the person that was holding the horse would go in the arena, they would walk in a circle, and then they would trot the horse in a circle. And this program shows their stride and movements during that time. And then they had then equine instructors, because our university does have university horses for our riding teams and riding classes. They had the instructors that had no clue which horses was on what, and they evaluated them saying, yeah, they seem like they're moving better today, or they're not as temperamental. We actually had a behavioral part of this study as well. So they found out the standard time maximum absorption is about 2 hours. So pretty much the CBD product will stay in their bloodstream for about 2 hours. They dosed the horses at 100 milligrams, and they got that dose, I think, twice a day over 6 weeks. I believe there was 12 horses that were tested on this. Like I said, they were basing it off of movement and behavior. The behavior evaluation was basically we strapped on a heart rate monitor and we videotaped it, and we had someone score how the horse reacted. So we would walk the horse through a barn, and then someone would flash an umbrella at the horse when they walked out of the barn, and they measured if the heart rate increased, how the horse reacted, etc. And they actually did find some differences there. With the blood, they found that there wasn't really anything out of parameters. There was no high creatines or albumins or anything. Their blood work was pretty normal. Nothing was high there, because that was also a big concern, especially for consumers that are going to use this product for horses they're going to use for competition. They didn't really find too much on the difference between treatment or the time it took for the heart rate to go down. But they did notice that the horses that were taking the CBD product had a lower reactivity to the umbrella opening than the control. In movement parameters, they found that the horses on the CBD product also had a better stance and a swing when they were walking and trotting. They noticed that their stride length kind of shortened a little bit too. Let's see. And then for the surveying for the behavior, these horses are being ridden every week. Some don't like to be tied. Some, kind of move around when they're being tied or saddled up. They noticed that they had a more positive attitude when the students or whoever was tying them up to stand there for a while, and for saddling, tacking them up. They also showed a high suppleness on that circle that I was talking about at the beginning, and they had a higher observation of tracking up. So the horses on the treatments, they saw that they could go up a hill a lot easier than those that weren't on the supplement. There's a couple pictures. On the left side is one of the horses reacting pretty bad to the umbrella. And then below is a student feeding the supplement. Only the students that were working on this and the advisors for this project knew which horses were on what. None of the other students that rode the horses or the instructors knew anything. They just knew they were getting the supplement. They didn't know if they were on a control or the CBD product. And we've actually published a few things on here. I think the horse.com or something or another has published this as well. It's pretty interesting research, and we hope to do it again. One that I actually wrote my graduate thesis on was our broiler chicken study. This was a two-year study. We found different results for both years, and we're hoping to continue on this research. We used a crushed whole hemp seed for this in this feed. And so we had a control, which had a 15% soybean meal added in there. And then we had a 10% whole hemp seed with 5% soybean meal, and then a 15% whole hemp seed with 0% soybean meal in it. So you can see these are the broilers. They were a day old in the left side picture, and then on the right side is right before they were taken to be euthanized. So for the first study, they actually used different percentages for the first study. In the second study, we wanted to get a more clear answer of which treatment would actually affect the birds. So for the first study, they found that the 30% group had a higher weight gain than the control and some of the other treatments. And these birds grow super fast. It's like about 49 days, which is, almost 2 months. And this is the feed conversion ratio. The 20% group actually had the lowest feed conversion ratio, and that's what you actually need. That means that the birds are eating, but they're eating less but gaining more weight, and that's kind of what we're gearing towards, especially in the industry that has broiler chickens throughout the whole year. This is from the second study, the 2019 study. We didn't really find much difference between the control and the treatment groups. The control actually seemed to do a little bit better. And this might be because we used the crushed whole hemp seed. The first study, we only used hemp hearts, which is the inside of the seed. So we think maybe the shell might have had something to do with that as well. Same with feed conversion ratio. The control had the best feed conversion ratio there. And these birds, we had 50 birds for the broiler chickens. Where they were in their own individual cages. And this was kind of a random block design as well. Let's see, there we go. This is a feed analysis of the crushed hemp seed compared to the other different feeds. You can see the protein and the fiber for this crushed hemp seed was very, very high, which is also not super ideal on the fiber side for birds because we want them to gain weight. But it did have a high amount of protein compared to the control. On the other hand, we did a laying study as well. This was more of a supplement instead of a replacement feed. This was in addition to their normal laying hen, feed that they get. In 2019, this was a 2-year study as well. They had the same diet as those. They just had to add it on. There was also 50 birds. There was about 16 birds per treatment in tiered cages. And these hens were bought already they were already laying eggs. So we had them for 2 weeks before we even started them on the hemp seed so they can get it acclimated to the hemp seed. We did find both of the different types of birds really liked eating it. They weren't super picky about it or anything. We ground it up pretty good and mixed it well. I did notice, and this isn't part of the study, the birds seemed a little bit more hyperactive, I guess you could say. The ones that were getting fed the 20% whole hemp seed, they seemed to be a little bit more hyperactive when you were trying to mess with them or grab their eggs from them. Let's see. So the 17 study only had a 50% hemp and a control. There was no big significant difference in the number of eggs that were laid, but for both years, they found really high omega-6s and omega-3s in the eggs. And ALAs, HDA are very much significantly higher than regular fed laying hens that are soy fed. So we think the supplementation of the hemp with the proteins and everything really helped add in those extra omega-3s and 6s in the diet. This is just the feed intake for that. And body weight. This is last year's omega-3 fatty acids. As you can see, the 20% hemp is a lot lot more than the control fed chickens. Then we also have omega-6 and omega-9. Omega-9 some kind of seemed like it went up and down a little bit. And it was also very hot that summer, and they were in a barn. They did have several fans, but we were mostly looking at omega-3s and 6s on that study. So another study we conducted with our Breathitt Veterinary Center and our veterinary technology program, a honors student actually took this on, doing a CBD trial with osteoarthritic dogs. And she had people in the community that had dogs that had arthritis help conduct this study. So the university was able to get a force plate, which pretty much the dog can walk on it, and it measures how much pressure they are putting on the plate, like how much pressure they put their foot down. They found they were feeding the dogs a CBD oil. The owners didn't know if they had the CBD oil or the olive oil. This was an 8-week study. So some of the dogs, I think 4 of the dogs were on the placebo and 4 of the dogs were on CBD. And then at 4 weeks, the ones that were on placebo got switched to CBD oil. And so every week they would go on that tech scan force plate to see their gait analysis. And then the owners would give surveys saying, oh, my dog feels or seems to be doing a lot, or walking a lot better, etc. They also did blood work. The blood work didn't show anything significant there either, nothing out of the normal. They found that the dogs that were on the 8-week CBD oil had a significant improvements compared to the ones that were on the placebo first. And we did get this CBD oil from a company that we used to work with. It was just a spray. It wasn't like, one that you drop in your mouth. So it's easier for them to apply the product for their animals. Very recently this summer, we don't have the results yet, but we did start a study with cattle, beef cattle. So these calves were just weaned, and we were determining if a CBD gel would help them, stop them from bawling for mama or help them calm down when they're being worked. We also utilized drones, which is pretty awesome. They would fly the drones after they were worked, after the CBD was put into their mouths, to see how they reacted, how many times they bawl out, and if they, try to search for mama or anything. Hopefully we have those results soon. I know they're still working on it. It's a very interesting study too, because we haven't really heard of anything being done like this with beef cattle or in calf weaning. And I'll pass it over to Dr. Handayani.
Thank you, Mallorie. So today I would like to share about just 1 year after we grow hemp, and then we check how is the soil quality. So let's talk about that. Next, please. But before we go through that, I would like to share some of the information why hemp, especially agricultural hemp, is important. So hemp global market is predicted to double from 2016 to present. And in the US, we are kind of the 3rd largest producer of hemp. So that's why we like to do research more detail. And then from 2020 to 2021, the acreage for hemp double. And one thing that interesting is we can grow without pesticide for certain varieties. And also hemp can be as phytoremediator, so can help with the detoxify the heavy metal pollution. And 1 hectare hemp can absorb about 22 ton carbon per hectare. This is a good deal, especially related to mitigation of climate change and carbon sequestration. And hemp is kind of more adaptable to dry soil. Oh, okay. And then 1 acre will produce about 3 acres worth of more durable paper. So that's one thing that is wonderful about hemp. Next, please. And we have hemp history for a long, long time in Kentucky. It was grown in 1775. So we have a long history of hemp actually. Of course, how the way we practice is different last time and this time. So we can see here that this is our field in MSU. So this is how we do the practice, is modern practice in hemp. Next, please. So I'd like to share a little bit how hemp used for the environment. Of course, all of you already know that it's naturally pest resistant and weed suppressant, and also can be used to clean up soil pollution like phytoremediators before. And farmers usually can grow food crops directly after we harvest the hemp without fallow period. And also hemp biomass fuels can help to reduce dependency of fossil fuels and can absorb carbon dioxide during photosynthesis, and also use less space and water than other common crops like corn, soybean, and tobacco. Next, please. And how about the contribution of hemp to soil? Well, one thing that's interesting is hemp has deep roots up to 45 to 90 centimeters, and it grows much faster than trees and has ability to improve the carbon sequestration in soil because 1.60 tons of carbon dioxide is removed for each ton of hemp that we grow. And then grew from seed to maturity is about 12 to 16 weeks. And also the tap roots of hemp will help to loosen the soil for the next crop or next crop rotation, therefore improve soil structure and hopefully reduce soil compaction. Next, please. And then the agricultural practices of hemp in Kentucky in general is like this, like very common, like plant rows 15 to 18 centimeter with soil depth 0.30 to 0.64 centimeter. And the pH that hemp like is between 6 to 7, so almost like other crops. And we plant April and June. And then within 3 to 4 weeks, the height is about 30 to 38 centimeter with 90% ground cover for weed control. So this is wonderful. And so far, no pesticide or herbicide approved for the hemp. And the fertilizer recommendations almost like wheat. And the growing season is about 110 to 150 days. Next, please. However, unfortunately, most of the research so far is how to make hemp happy, how to make hemp like well to grow. But so far, no scientific finding or scientific research, scientific report that tell about how the hemp growth have impact on soil. So that's why this research or this finding kind of tell us like just 1 year during we grow hemp, how is the impact on soil quality? Because soil fertility has been studied by Dr. Ferguson and students, so hopefully he can share today. But for soil quality, like physical soil quality and biological soil quality, no, I haven't seen the report or the articles in, in internet or others. Next, please. So does growing hemp really change soil quality? Let's see, please, next. So before we talk about soil quality indicators, I like to share what is meant by soil quality. So soil quality is soil condition to predict its productivity, its capacity of soil to function within its ecosystem, boundary to sustain biological productivity and maintain environmental quality and promote plant and animal health. And when we talk about soil quality, actually include physical, chemical, and biology. So you can see here in the picture, you see even in the soil surface, the quality of the soils is different. So when we talk about quality, it's kind of has to be quantitative, so the farmers can get advantages to see if the soil is getting better or getting worse. And when we talk about soil quality, it's really related to soil health. There is no, healthy food or healthy crop without healthy soil. Next, please. So in this case, I focus on physical indicator, especially soil structure, related to book density, soil compaction, water holding capacity, and porosity. And then for chemical indicator, I focus on soil pH because this is the one that control the nutrient availability for hemp or nutrient availability to make hemp happy. And then also the biological indicators that I use for today's presentation is soil organic matter, because soil organic matter is kind of food and energy sources for soil microorganisms, and also is indicator of carbon sequestration or carbon stock, because as you know, hemp produce high biomass and also have high root biomass. Next, please. So therefore, this study is to investigate the short-term impacts of growing hemp 1 year, which is we grow in 2019, and then we check the soil in 2020 on selected soil quality indicators. Next, please. So our study actually used the existing fields that used by other researchers in Murray State University, and is located in West Farm, and the soil texture is shit loam. And we conducted the research in September, October 2020. So this one is the condition of the farm at the time. Next, please. Yeah, this result was kind of the experiment conducted together with my students, Jack Iker and Nathan Falls. So the first data is soil compaction, and the unit is kilopascal. And from here, we can see actually there is no significant difference in the shallow depth, which is 3 inches and 6 inches for all the field in Hemp 2, Hemp 1, Hemp 3, and also other cropping system. Hemp 1 and Hemp 2 actually is the hemp that we harvest for the fibers, and then Hemp 3 actually is the hemp that we harvest the flowers and the seeds. Next, please. And then another soil compaction indicator, we measure using undisturbed soil sample, which is using ring sample, as you seen on the picture. So we measure book density. We can see here the result is a little bit different, and this one is 3 inches. And the unit is gram per centimeter cube. We can see here that book density, not significant different for Hemp 1 and Hemp 2. This is for fibers, but Hemp 3 is a little bit higher, and compared to corn, soybean, and barley, all almost the same. Next, please. And then the porosity trend is almost the same with book density, except that for if we have high book density, it means high compaction, that the porosity is lower. But from this result, actually the porosity is kind of ideal because it's between 45 to 50%. Next, please. And then the soil water holding capacity is the ability of soil to hold water in saturated soil condition, and the unit is in percent. And we can see here actually the hemp number 3, or the one that we harvest for flower and seeds, actually has the lowest soil water holding capacity compared to the other hemp, which is the one that from fibers. But this is understandable because it has more biomass. And then corn, soybean, and the barley has almost the same like Hemp 1 and Hemp 2 in terms of soil water holding capacity. Next, please. And then this one is the one that I'm really looking forward, because soil organic matter is the foundation of soil quality, as it's kind of the driving force of carbon sequestration and for mitigation climate change. So we like to see if this one is kind of, hemp has potential to sequester more carbon. And for the first year research, I think I'm really pleased because this is the only variable that give significant difference between kind of among the different kind of cropping system and hemp. Among the hemp is not significant different, but if we compare between hemp fields and other cropping system, hemp fields has better soil organic matter significantly. even better than the common agricultural field, conventional tillage, of course. Next, please. And then soil pH or soil acidity level, actually, this soil pH level is still in the range of number that make the hemp happy, between 6 to 7. So there is no impact after 1 year of growing hemp on soil acidity, because the soil pH is still, constant between 6 to 7, which is what we wanted. Next, please. So in conclusion, after 1 year we grow hemp, in terms of physical soil quality indicator, as indicated by soil compaction, bulk density, total porosity, and soil water holding capacity, they don't have significant impact if we compare hemp and non-hemp fields. And then the soil compaction level is even below 300 kilopascal, which is good, but I think not for this year, because this year we have a lot of problems with soil compaction. And then if our soil is more than 300 kilopascal, our soil is in trouble, because it seems whenever more than 300 kilopascal, then the roots cannot penetrate well to the soil. So this is what's happened this year, but last year, perfect. And then the bulk density is a little bit higher, but it's still common number in agricultural field in Kentucky. And total porosity is still ideal, is between 45 to 50%. And soil water holding capacity actually is a little bit lower compared to kind of like if we have soybeans, for example. And then soil pH, again, is still ideal. And then soil organic matter range is between 3.6 to 3.9%. And this is wonderful, because the common agricultural field in Kentucky for soil organic matter is between 1 to 3%. And this is higher. And I don't know for this year yet, because we plan to take soil sample sometime this, next week or in October. And is significantly higher than corn and soybean cropping system, which is beside the hemp fields. Next, please. So this is the references that I use. And as you see, yes, you see, actually, there is no research until today about how the impacts of hemp, agricultural hemp growth on soil quality yet. So hopefully in the future, near future, we will have more. Thank you. Next, please. Yeah. Thank you so much. And I will be glad to entertain the question.
Hi, it's Norm Strobel. Hello.
Hello.
I thought all the work presented was very interesting. How many more years are you going to carry this out? Can you do a long-term study? And my understanding is that you have to rotate the hemp, so there won't be hemp after hemp. Is that true?
Well, I can jump in. We're growing hemp a second year, but we'll rotate it off. I assume that's going to be true. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of real old data on crop rotation of hemp up in Wisconsin, but I would assume that rotating would be helpful.
I also had a question about some of your data where you had, say, 0 to 7 tons of chicken litter added.
Can you go back, Mallorie, to that slide? Yeah, even back further.
Yeah, there you go. So you've got, say, for 0, you've got a plant height of 48.7.
Right.
How many
That's the average over all the
Right. How many replicate plants does that represent?
I think she measured like 20 plants. So
Yeah, here's my question. This looks like a great thing to analyze using linear regression rather than comparison of means. And you might actually see a statistical relationship there.
well, this one was highly significant even that way, but a regression would be good. I agree with that.
Do you mind if I just use the numbers that you presented here, the means? And because it's not really the way to do it, but it's curious to me. I'm curious.
Okay.
I'll do that, see what I get.
Okay.
You know, like is there an increase, R value for positive correlation, that kind of thing. I'll let you know what I find out. I can't put that on the front burner, but I took pictures of all the slides, so. Oh, the other question I had was, you measured the CBD yield, right?
Yes.
Did you also look at THC or any other cannabinoids?
We did. We have all the cannabinoids.
See, what I'm wondering is, how did THC vary with the CBD? Did it stay in parallel with it, or did you actually favor one over the other?
I can look real quick. We did have
okay, because that's what growers really want, is something to tamp down THC and amp up CBD.
Typically, THC and CBD are parallel together. So if it has high CBD, it's going to have high THC.
Yeah.
It's kind of the trending we've
So
found.
if you had 10% CBD, what was your THC level? Because if it's blowing hotter than 0.3, you're in trouble.
Did have some that were over the 0.3% level.
Yeah.
And they did, you're right, Mallory. So, but now the way that the Kentucky Department of Agriculture samples is different than just taking the purified hemp that we had from the flower bud.
Yep. Yep. It's so early days here again.
Right. On the first one, it had 10% CBD. It had 0.514% THC.
Ooh, you'd have to plow that down. The state will make you plow it down if you've got 0.5% THC.
Yeah, university research, it's all destruct anyways.
Oh, well, you know what I'm saying. If a grower was if a grower was getting 10% and 0.5, they would lose the whole crop.
Yep.
So I know you're experimenting with, well, what happens, and I get that. You also have to look at, well, what can happen within a normal, acceptable range of THC. But that's fascinating. I didn't know what the yields were for CBD. That's a pretty high yield, isn't it? 10%.
Yeah. Now that was the year that we didn't have any seed. It was we didn't have any other hemp plants on the farm.
Yeah.
And they were only feminized plants.
Got it.
Pollination is a problem.
Tell me about these corn earworms. Were they a problem in other fields or other years?
Well, 2019 was my first year working with hemp, and it was terrible. I've never.
Yeah.
I mean, it was.
And you sprayed for them in 2020.
We used Gemstar.
Gemstar, is that a conventional?
It's GEMST. It's a virus that helps control.
Oh, good.
It's on the list.
Yeah.
Yeah, UK's list for biopesticides that can be used with hemp.
Oh, that's good. So have other people reported this problem, do you know? Because I'm a plant pathologist by training, and this first I've heard of, I think maybe I saw some in Winchester.
A lot of farmers have reported it's been one of their problems.
See, that's, people say, oh, it's insect resistant, it has no trouble with diseases. You grow it enough, you're going to have some trouble, right?
Right, that's exactly right.
Dr. Ferguson, someone asked, how do you feminize hemp?
Well, it's a long process, and we buy the seed, it's already feminized. So you buy, and I don't have time to go into how they do that, but it's, you can get into the genetics of that, but there's several ways. I mean, but we buy seed that's already been feminized. So it's, but again,
If I could,
let me make one point. Even though we had feminized seed, we had one plant that put out a branch that had male flowers on it.
Oh no!
Yeah, so you have to watch your plants, and if you get any male, well, having both, it would have female and male, so it'd be monoecious, but we had to destroy that one branch. So the genetics of hemp are interesting because you have to go. It was one of the first where they studied sex in plants. And from what I have read, a lot of plants vary in how they do that. But in hemp, one of the reports said there's actually chromosomes that will be responsible for that.
There's a journal, and I've only seen a couple of them, that's kind of about, it's like an equipment and methods journal for analysis and all this stuff, and they have a lot of advertisements in them. I just can't remember the name of it, but there was an article in there about genes associated with male or femaleness, so you could do like a quick test, which would be, good instead of waiting until you have to see flowers. I don't know if that's state of the art yet.
Some of them are actually propagating feminine plants.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a big investment up front. Because those seeds, I understand, feminized seed is like $1 a piece. And if you buy a cutting, it's $5.
Well, this past spring, the price was $1.80 a seed, but if you buy bulk, we got it down to around 80 cents.
Oh, okay, cool.
Very expensive.
Cool.
That's feminized seed, yeah.
I'm going to answer David's question. He asked, do you think hemp seeds will ever be inexpensive enough for use in animals? So we're trying to strive towards fiber and grain. Hopefully in the future it will be. Right now, I don't know.
Yeah.
Everyone's probably aware of Victory Hemp Foods. They have a lot of things to do with hemp seed and the human aspect, but not animal aspect. But hopefully in the future, especially because fiber hemp can be used as two different commodities, grain and fiber. Dr. Ferguson, I think.
I can't see the questions, so.
Someone asked, any danger of the treatment chemicals getting in a dangerous amount into the CBD oil?
Most of what we've done right now is biologicals. No, so I would say no, but that's one of the reasons more traditional pesticides have not been approved. They're going to have to go through that kind of research. So right now, the answer is no. The few things that are available are bio pesticides. One is a silica that we use. One was that double nickel that had the best effect was a bacterium, Bacillus bacterium. And the other is neem oil. It's used by organic farmers all the time too. So it's very safe. Now, for any pesticides being registered in the future, that would certainly be something that has to be studied.
You all hear me at all? My Zoom is frozen.
Uh-oh. I hear you.
Oh, good. Okay. I can't really see you and I can't see the chat, but if anybody else has other questions, I just would invite folks to unmute themselves and ask any other questions. I know we're over time, but I appreciate the conversation.
You've gone Zoom blind, huh?
Are there any ethnobotanists at Murray State doing any work related to what you're doing?
Not yet. We don't know yet. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
There's people who are interested, aren't they? Annie, where are you, Annie?
I'm at NKU and the Art Academy of Cincinnati. So my background is in ethnobotany.
Yeah.
And indigenous studies. I was in an organization when I was an undergrad at NKU 20 years ago for the relegalization of hemp for fiber.
Yeah, good for you.
Yes, and it was you know, so we did some good work, and then so I've been following this, and then I have concern about the question that was just asked about the pesticides with the CBD, right? But also just the beautiful just emergence of how CBD has been very helpful, and just these changes that we've had, right? So I'm an anthropologist, so just changes that we've had over the past decade, and kind of following Winona LaDuke and her work. If you're familiar with Winona, is anyone familiar with her?
I don't know.
Yeah,
okay.
I was ethnoecologist. My background a little bit ethnologist, but I only focus on Southeast Asian plants and South Asian soil, something like. But I haven't done research about the ethnoecology in United States. So yeah, but I know that book.
Hey, Annie.
Yes.
We live in such a capitalist system, and there's certain. It takes a lot of money to structure up a hemp processing plant, like that's $15 million and so forth, and all these things. And I've been thinking lately that the way to popularize it among the people who have more money and more power is to come up with some novel, fashionable artistic applications. Like one of my ideas is to have the hats women wear to the Derby to be made out of hemp fiber, right?
That's a beautiful
Another
idea.
one would be to make artist canvases with hemp fiber and use the hemp oil to make some of the pigments, and to sell that as it'd be like a specialty market. I don't know, there might be some people willing to pay money for that special thing as a symbolic gesture.
And it is a way to get at the money, if strategically organized in that way, because we need the big, right? We need the big money in order to do the big research.
Exactly.
So that's that's an interesting. Mm-hmm.
We need a think tank.
I'm in. If you contact me, if you ever want a think tank on this, I'll definitely be there.
I just like to spiel out ideas and see what can be done. You know, it's part of it's creativity.
Maybe KS could organize like an interdisciplinary, working group or something like that.
Yeah,
that would be great.
My only question for you all would be whether you'd be willing to share your slides. I don't know if there are things in those slides that you couldn't share with us on our website, but I would love to have them to share if you're able to.
Yeah, I can email those to you.
Great, thank you so much.
So you recorded this, or is there going to be a video recording available at some link?
Yes, there will be a video recording, assuming my Zoom freezing doesn't mess this up. I will put the recording on our website, and that should be there Monday.